Good morning, everyone. If you're new to watching these videos, then, well, you picked a great one to start with. And I do mean this is going to be great. How you interpret that level of great is up to you. Every year, on this day, there is a video that I dedicate a certain story to. That story is how I overcame my contemplation of suicide. And how I ultimately stopped myself from, doing myself in, if you will. So, while I may not be ready to talk about this, both physically or mentally, no matter how I feel, it doesn't matter. This always takes precedence over how I feel or whatever's going on. So, with that said, back when I was in 7th grade, my parents had made a decision regarding me. The kind of decision where, upon first glance, they thought they were doing what was best for me. Unfortunately, that could not have been further from the truth. I'd always grown up, and if you see my videos, then you know exactly what my personality is like for the most part. I always try and see the glass is half full. Ever since I heard Andrew Zimmern say the glass is always refillable, I try and look at it that way. So, half full to refillable. That's pretty much how my mentality always was for many years. And in some ways, even now. But after my parents made this decision, it completely ruined me. It's the kind of decision where it actually wound up me being involved with some very terrible people. The kind of people where instead of trying to help me with whatever, they actually wound up making things worse. Both physically, all three, physically, mentally, and socially. I felt as if I was a complete laughingstock. A joke. And it was just pure awful. In fact, I'm going to make this bold claim right now. As bad of a year as 2020 was, I would actually rather have 2020 for the rest of my life than go through what happened in middle school and high school again. And I'll tell you why. At the very least, throughout this whole year, as bad as it was, and I'm sure I can make an argument that 2020 ruined me as well. But the difference is, at least throughout 2020, I was able to find something to make me feel better and ultimately forget about what my quote-unquote troubles were. After my parents had made this decision for me all those years ago, nothing made me feel better. See, under normal circumstances, if I was ever feeling down or depressed or sad or whatever, I'd find a way to get myself out of it. Watch something good on TV, listen to some good music, watch a good movie, have a good snack to eat, something that was gonna make me feel better, take my mind off of whatever was wrong and, move on. Forget about it. None of that worked here regarding the decision my parents made. Nothing. And it was like that for about over 4 years. Actually, 4 years, give or take. When you can't feel better from doing even some of your favorite things, like, again, watching TV or, playing a good video game or something, if none of that makes you feel better if you're depressed, then there is something horribly wrong. And there was. Now, I said for 4 years this went on. Before I became a senior in high school, I was able to sort of fix the decision, at least, and get myself away from those people. But by that point, the people involved with that decision, but by that point, the damage had already been done. I was flat out ruined. I felt so incredibly bad that, nothing made me feel better, and I felt people were belittling me or making fun of me. I mean, to put things into perspective, whenever I would go to a high school dance, I'm not a creep. Of course, I'm gonna ask a girl if, she wants to dance. And through it all, I'm just thinking, should I say yes, by the way? Are they saying yes because they legitimately do want to dance with me? Or are they doing it out of pity? And believe it or not, more often than not, I felt it was the latter. I mean, if any girl from way back then happens to be watching this and you did legitimately want to dance with me, thank you. That actually makes me feel better, I'm not gonna lie. And it was just, again, it was like that for years. And it was at that point where I really was contemplating with the idea of, suicide. And then it happened. I'll never forget what had happened. This was a Saturday during my senior year at Horseheads. I had actually just come back home from a football game. Because, I played football senior year of high school. And my team, Horseheads that is, had just got completely blown away by a school called Fayetteville Manlius. I think the final score, if I recall, was like 38-7. It was pretty bad. But then again, at the time, Horseheads football really wasn't that good. I mean, from what I've seen, they're better now, but at the time, we were not that great. When the sad part is, I felt it really could have been. But I digress. So, I get home from a devastating loss, from the football game. I get out of my car, and my parents actually walk out to me because I parked in my parents' driveway. I mean, I'm 17 at the time. I'm not living on my own yet. So I get out of the car. My mother and father, walk outside and see me. And they come up with the idea that after I graduate from Horseheads, I take what's called a postgraduate year at a prep school. Basically, I'd be repeating my senior year. Yeah, my parents really have never been great with timing or decision making, because after hearing about how I just came back from a football game in which my team lost devastatingly, mind you, and I get home, do I really look like I'm in any position to talk about my future at this point? the number one choice for me to go to a prep school was a place called Trinity Pauling. Now, right away, I was already turned off with even remotely wanting to go back to high school. But the thing about Trinity Pauling that was a real big turnoff for me at that time was Trinity Pauling was an all-boys school. That was a turnoff because, again, and I've said this many times, I actually just said this on Saturday, actually. I was rejected by practically every girl at Horseheads. But here's the thing. At least that's a numbers game. Eventually someone maybe would have actually said yes. If I went to Trinity Pauling, I don't even have that going for me. But at that time, I was thinking, because here's the thing, and I've said this before, I wanted going to Trinity Pauling for pretty selfish reasons. Because there was a guy I knew at Horseheads who I could never beat, and I wanted to finally beat him. Plus, there was a girl I really liked, and I wanted to better myself. So, if I ever saw her again, I'd be ready. I'd be a better man. But the more time went on, the more I thought, wow, I really have hit rock bottom. So, at this point, I've said this part of the story many times, but I'll say it again. It was a Tuesday, September 2nd, 2008. And that was the day that I went to Trinity Pauling. I'll never actually forget what had happened on the way up there. We're actually on the highway in which Elmira would have been to my right. And I get a call from my grandmother. And, don't get me wrong, I was feeling relatively melancholy on the day I left for Trinity Pauling. But hearing my grandmother's voice, especially when, again, I told myself I was going to damn well, kill myself at this point. I thought I was hearing my grandmother's voice for the last time. I really thought that was the case. So, needless to say, after that phone call, I was bawling my eyes out. Because again, I thought the end was nigh, if you will. Well, funny enough, when I got to Trinity Pauling, I immediately hit the ground quite literally running. Because I couldn't play football at Trinity Pauling, but I could do cross country. And throughout the summer, I've been training a lot for cross country. I said this before. Before I graduated Horseheads, I was actually able to run a sub 6 minute mile. So, if nothing else, I had that going for me. I was at Trinity Pauling for maybe 3-4 hours. And then we just started cross country practice that same day. And it wound up being a blessing in disguise for me. Because remember, I had said I was actually going to kill myself. But between doing cross country, taking part in the fall production of Black Comedy, and getting all my schoolwork done. Trinity Pauling is a prep school. I have work to do, I'm not gonna not do it. I grew to be so incredibly busy that, days, weeks, months go by. We're already at the Fall Athletic Awards, and I had completely forgotten what my objective was. I told myself I was going to kill myself, but I completely forgot I was going to do it. Basically, I got distracted. It happens. In this case, it was for the best. And you would think, because the Fall Athletic Awards were right before we had our fall break, right before we had finals. in November. And apparently I did a really great job at Trinity Pauling at that point because I was given praise for how well I did in black comedy from my peers. My grades were, for the most part, pretty solid. And I had won an award for cross country called the Sean McCabe Award. And keep in mind, I did nothing but, for the most part, play football in high school. I really had no business winning an award like this, but I did. And I received so much praise and recognition from my peers that in some ways it was quite overwhelming. But at the same time, I immediately thought to myself, this isn't going to last. They're going to forget everything you just did, and, things will be back to the way they were before this whole thing began, and, then, you can find a way to kill yourself whenever. So, at that point, again, this was near the end of the fall and early winter semester, or trimester is what it is. So I told myself, okay, I'll wait until January of 2009 to do the deed, if you will. Because, we're already at Thanksgiving. We're not that far away from Christmas. My birthday is December 28th, so I'll be celebrating turning 19 at the time. So, one last holiday with the family, one last, hurrah, I guess, tell my family I love them, stuff like that. Obviously not hinting that I was going to commit suicide. And that was going to be the end. When I get back to Trinity Pauling in 2009, in January 2009, I'm going to do it. And believe me, I had options to do it at Trinity Pauling. I mean, that fourth story of Clue, it's pretty tall, Not to mention, that pond could get real cold. So, when I say I had options, I'm being serious on that. So, at this point you guys are wondering, Nick, you said you were going to kill yourself back in January 2009. It's December of 2020. What happened? Did something make you change your mind and say, you're not going to do this anymore? And if so, what was it? Well, it happened on this very day, 12 years ago. Now, before I continue on with this part of the story, I'd like to iterate something. What I'm about to tell you takes over the span of several days, but it started today, on December 14th. I will never forget what happened on this day, because what had happened is so much ingrained in my memory that it would take nothing short of a miracle or horrible miracle, because I don't want to forget this, to make me forget this. So, what happened on December 14th, 2008? Because that's when it was. Well, again, I will never forget this day, as I remember everything I did that day. Yeah, I remember everything. It was a Saturday, and we were just sort of really getting into wrestling season at the time, because that's why I went to Trinity Pauling for, was really for wrestling. And we were actually going to the Loomis Chaffee, because that was the name of that. Yeah, that was actually the name of the school, Loomis Chaffee dual meet tournament. This was actually a brand new experience for me, because when I was at Horseheads, we never went to dual meet tournaments. I mean, we've been in tournaments, but not dual meet tournaments. So this was actually quite a brand new experience for me. And we got up early and we drove all the way to Loomis Chaffee. And this day wound up being more important for me at the time before I even realized it, because it was actually going to be the very first time that my father was going to see me wrestle for the blue and the gold. Those are Trinity Pauling's colors, blue and gold. And I had an opportunity to face off against a kid who 1 week before, at the Canterbury Christmas tournament, I lost to in sudden death. So, a rematch against a kid that I can beat, with my father cheering me on in the stands, there was no way I was going to let this opportunity pass me by. And I wound up winning that match. I would actually wind up wrestling that kid several times throughout the rest of the season. And he actually wound up being a pretty decent guy. I got to know him a little better. I wonder how he's doing. I remember him being a nice guy. I hope he's doing okay. And again, we're all doing okay. So, I won that match. I lost another match because Trinity Pauling got beaten by this one school from New Jersey, and I wound up winning my last match of the day. Because of the forfeit, I had a record of a 3-1 that day. It was actually kind of sweet. So after we're done wrestling, if your parents were there, they could take you home to Trinity Pauling, that is. So my father drove me back home to Trinity Pauling, and on the way back, I told him about how for one of our advisee dinners, we went to a place called Putnam Diner, and I wanted to tell him about how it's a really great place. That reminds me, seriously, like, to any and all Trinity Pauling alumni who are watching this, we gotta get together and go to Putnam Diner. I'm just saying. Anyway, so because it's the kind of diner that serves breakfast all day. They actually had really good steak. That was really good. So I had shown my father Putnam Diner. He really liked it. And, it was I think it was like 10 o'clock when everything was all said and done. So he went back to his motel. I went to bed at Trinity Pauling, and that was pretty much the end of the day. At this point, you guys are probably thinking, oh, Nick, that's actually a really nice story. I mean, it's a nice story, but I really don't see how it could ultimately change your mind about suicide. Believe me, ladies and gentlemen, I really wish the story ended there. If the story ended there, you would say it's a great story, but technically, you're right. It wouldn't come across the points of what made me change my mind about contemplating suicide. What I'm about to tell you is something in which, if you had told me it was going to happen, I'd never believe you. So it was the next morning, on December 15th. Now, Trinity Pauling has Sunday chapel. Basically, it's our way of doing sort of a Sunday mass, but also it's so they keep tabs on everyone who's there. Just because. I mean, they can trust me, I'm not going anywhere. So, normally you do have it, but this is actually a day we weren't supposed to have it. So I'm in the lounge of Dunbar Dormitory, watching TV, waiting for my father to come so we can get together for the day, hang out. And my advisor actually walks into the lounge where I'm sitting, just, laying on the couch. And he says, Nick, you need to go to the chapel. I'm thinking to myself, okay, I mean, my advisor is a sweet man. I'm not gonna argue with him. I'll do what he says, sure. I didn't think anything of it at the time. So, I get over to the chapel, essentially minding my own business. And, I mean, it's in December, so of course it's gonna be cold inside the chapel. So it was a pretty cool day. Not unbearably cold, but still kind of cold. And, I'm sitting in the chapel, roughly where I normally sit. That when I'm not singing choir, that is. And I look to my left, and I actually see a friend of mine who was actually from Canada. He actually played lacrosse, and is actually he's coaching college lacrosse right now. Actually, I believe he's coaching in Florida. I forget what specific college he's coaching lacrosse in, but needless to say, he's doing really well for himself. Now, this particular friend of mine always had a very pale complexion. He always, if you saw him, his skin tone was really, pale. Not his fault, this is how the pigments of his skin work, I guess. This particular morning, however, he looked so incredibly pale, it looked like he had just seen a ghost. It was actually kind of freaky. But then again, knowing what I'm about to tell you, I wouldn't be surprised if he was the one who wound up seeing what I'm about to tell you about. Being the first one to do so, that is. So, we're all in the chapel. And our headmaster walks up to the podium and says a few sort of solemn sounding words. For the life of me, I couldn't remember what he said, because how could you remember what he said, considering what he said at the very end? And what wound up happening is that one of my brothers had died last night. Just the shock of did we all really just hear this? Did that really just happen? Yeah, it did. His name was Andrew Einstein. He was actually someone I knew, not the greatest, mind you. Because here's the thing. He was my teammate for cross country. And he went to Trinity College for lacrosse. And for the most part, players of any given sport pretty much gravitated towards each other. If you were there for lacrosse, you pretty much hang out with all lacrosse people. If you were there for basketball, you pretty much hang out with all basketball people, and so on and so forth. So he was my teammate for cross country. And he was actually quite good. In fact, I'll never forget what had happened when I first arrived at Trinity Poly. I had fought tooth and nail to make just the top 7, and he was number 1, number 2 on the team. That's how good he was. And like me, he was also a PG. And he's also in the postgraduate year. And needless to say, he was the nicest guy ever. Everyone at Trinity Poly loved him. And it didn't really help anyone's case for the fact that he was from South Carolina, so ladies, he had the accent. The Southern gentleman accent. And he was a really sweet guy. And just to hear that he had died via suicide. In fact, later on, it was revealed straight up how he did it. He hung himself. I'm just thinking, this is really happening. And from that moment on, over the next several days, because this was literally right as we're about to go into winter break for 3 weeks. We would have had classes on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday would have been the last day, we go home. That was it. So all throughout these last several days, it's just a whirlwind of emotions. And I think it really hit me on a Monday night when we all had the memorial service for Andrew Einstein. Because, actually, this was quite, because, I sang in the choir, but so I learned some of the ins and outs of what was going on for this particular, mass. There was actually going to be both a priest and a rabbi there, because Andrew's mother was Episcopalian, which is the sect of Christianity that Trinity Pauling is based on, and his father was Jewish. I would like to point out that, wait, his father was Jewish and there's a rabbi there, his last name was Einstein. How could you not piece that together? Listen, it's kind of rude to simply walk up to someone and say, hey, are you Jewish? It's kind of rude to do that. That's why I never really ask about that sort of thing, because for the most part, anyway, it's not my business, but, it is what it is. Between the Trinitones, which was the a cappella group at Trinity Pauling, singing the alma mater, and what I'm about to tell you what else I saw. Again, if you were to tell me what was going to happen at the time, I'd never believe you. I exit the chapel, and I just see all of my brothers just completely losing it. I see guys who are bigger and, by all accounts, stronger than I am, and, they're hugging, they're crying, they had each other's backs. Sound familiar? And it was at that point where, again, two things were going through my head. The first, I just said that if you were to tell me, what was happening was going to happen, there's no way I'd believe you. The other thing is, actually, that's three things. The second thing is, because understand, I was contemplating suicide myself. Yet, I just told you what happened around the time of the Fall Honor Awards, I get praise for being in black comedy. I won the Sean McCabe Award for cross country, which is a sport that I never thought I'd do so well in a million years. And my grades are pretty decent. Things are going pretty well for me at this point. So, if I had done this, would I have elicited this kind of reaction? Would these gentlemen be weeping for me in the same way they're weeping for Andrew? I don't know. And that's something I'll never know. And this is the final thing that was going through my head. I couldn't do that to these guys. I couldn't. I was actually given more warmth in my cup. And here's the thing. I was only at Trinity Pauling for a couple months at this point. I barely knew. There were so many people I still never even met. And I was actually in a warmer environment than, for the most part, anything at Horseheads. But again, that really has to do with the decision my parents made when I was at Horseheads. So, I couldn't do that to these guys at all. I couldn't do that to them. One death is going to be sad enough. But two? I don't think they'd ever be able to recover from that. So I didn't. And I'm still here. You guys are probably thinking, this story has a happy ending. Well, technically for the story to end, I would kind of have to die because that's how it works. Your story ends when you go. That's just how life works, sadly. Honestly, and again, I'm going to be straight with you people. My life really has sucked. It damn well has sucked. It has. And yet, again, I told you everything that happened at Horsehouse. When Andrew had died, I thought I had every right to do what he did in comparison. But I didn't. And not to mention, this was right before the winter break. We all still had to go back to Trinity Pauling during the winter. It was cold, windy, depressing, just pure awful. And the fact that I was back away from my family, I remember one night just thinking about what would happen if I had done the same thing. My mother absolutely being devastated. And I woke up in the middle of the night crying. It was that bad. A couple months went by. So this is around April, early April. And we actually get a visit from Andrew's parents. And he was going over, some of the important things about Andrew's life. How he was really great at lacrosse. How, he loved to do the things that he did in life. And how, and because and I said this before, he was from South Carolina. And he was really, really, really big into his state. Like, to put things in perspective, our senior caps, like they're actually like baseball caps that we got, the back of it was like, I forget what the symbol's called, but it's the symbol for South Carolina, where it's like that giant crescent moon hovering over that one tree. I can't remember the symbol. Maybe someone can help me out with that one. And, we had learned that thousands of people went to Andrew Einstein's funeral. The governor of South Carolina was there. That's how, that's pretty big. Holy cow. So, it was nice actually hearing Andrew's father speak that day. In fact, I'm actually friends with him on Facebook. In fact, that's how I learned when Andrew's birthday was, because Andrew had died long before I had a Facebook, so I had no idea when his birthday was. Turns out, his birthday's on Flag Day, June 14th, so that's surprising easy to remember. And again, don't think that you can hear this story and say that my life is great, because really it hasn't been. I've been through the ringer many times over the years. I struggled to get through college. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that you don't really need to hear about everything, because that's not what the story is supposed to entail. Plus, again, you don't really need to hear it, considering that you just heard that a classmate of mine passed away. But as bad as everything's been, and believe me, there's been a lot of bad. There's been some pretty damn good too. In the years since this had happened, we got to see the ending of the Harry Potter movies. We got to see not one, not two, not three, but 4 Avengers movies. I got to graduate college with a Bachelor of Arts in Health Sciences. I've ran not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 marathons. With 4 100-mile bike rides too. All for charity. I got to witness my brother getting engaged, getting married, and having 2 twin boys. With the reason why I wake up every day with a smile on my face. Sorry. So yeah, life hasn't been all that great. But when I tell you that there's been damn good, I mean serious. In fact, you want to know another thing that's also really great? I've been making videos for almost 3 years at this point. And I never stop. I get to tell you this story. To share the story with the world. So you can help those who need help themselves. When I say, I have your back, come talk to me, please do. If you're feeling like life is so incredibly bad that you want to end it, come to me. I've been there. So I know. So with that said, even as time went on, it would be 4 years and 6 days later that another one of my brothers passed away. And funny enough, he was another one of my teammates for cross country. His name was Sean Bertanza. I'll be getting into him in a couple of days from now, because he had passed away on December 20th, 2012. So needless to say, this video is dedicated to both the Einstein family and the Bertanza family, because they were both my teammates in cross country. In fact, whenever I write down the initials of the 16 of the right, both of their names are there. AE for Andrew Einstein and SB for Sean Bertanza. If you really want to know something really kind of grim, there were 7 members in Trinity Pauling's top 7 cross-country runners, because that's what you need a varsity team. This is, top 7. And of those 3, I'm the only one who's still alive. If anyone wants to, give me, that invisibility cloak from Harry Potter that wards off death, apparently, I would very much appreciate that. So, yeah. Pretty sure don't think, if this whole year has been any indication, is that life is never going to be perfect. In fact, it's one of the main reasons why I do a low and a high in act of kindness every day. In fact, you want to know what my low was for yesterday? If you guys checked out my Facebook and Instagram, you know I made my parents vegetable noodle soup. It's actually a combination of Adam Rugasia's shockingly easy veggie soup and noodled vegetables with chicken thighs being made under a brick recipe. Actually, it was a combination of that. When I was making dinner, I cut my finger. Pretty bad, actually. There's a reason why I'm still wearing this Band-Aid. I'll put it that way. So, yeah. Needless to say, life is going to find a way to bring you down. But, if human evolution has taught us anything, it's that whether you realize it or not, you're made of the right stuff. You can get through it. Some things take a lot more work and effort to get over than others. Believe me, I know. I still have my own share of set of problems I work on, that I suck at working on. But I at least think about it a little. I had said that my brothers, when Andrew Einstein died, he saved my life. When my brothers had gotten together in that time of great need, my brothers saved my life. And admittedly, through years, I've been struggling trying to think of a reason to live and move on. Because, again, life isn't great. I'm still single. I have my own set of problems to deal with. But, if you really think hard enough, you can find something that can be your driving force and your reason to live. Even if all the joy is sucked out of you, it's possible to find something in your life that you can give all your love and attention to. So needless to say, when I said that I got to live to see my brother get engaged, be married, and have a set of twins, they're my nephews, You know what? I get to be able to say that because I'm alive to be able to do it. And don't get me wrong, life's gonna get bad. Sure. Sorry. But I can assure you, you're gonna find people in life who you know for a fact they can give you so much love and support. Your family, your friends, maybe you'll find something you really like to do that can just give you a sense of purpose in life. I may never know what that is specifically for me, but I'm okay with that. Because you know what? I have family that loves me. I have friends that care about me. I have a pair of nephews who are the reason why I wake up with a smile every day. And when you realize you have that, I'll tell you what, it's going to be hard for me to ever feel that way ever again. From when I was way back in middle school. So, I'd like to end this off by saying, I am beyond humbled that I get to share this story with all of you. I am hopeful that you take my story, spread the word, share it with everyone. Let people who struggle with how they feel, let them know they can find love, they can find happiness, and they can move on with their lives. And always know that if you ever need to talk to anyone, someone will always be there to listen. Whether you like that person to listen to you or not. I know I certainly will. So, thank you. Thank you, all of you. You know, we only have a little ways of 2020 to go. And I've been using the hashtag, let's make a fourth quarter 2020 comeback. I'd say at this point, we've entered overtime. And when you're in overtime, it's when you really put your pedal to the metal. It's when you have nothing left to give, but you know you still have a lot more to do. The end of 2020 is going to be something of a pretty big ride. So let's take it on together. I think we can. So, thank you. And I hope that you all have a wonderful day. And you know, you have the holiday season. So, I'm sure you're able to find something to make you happy. Oh boy, it always amazes me just how long this video usually is. Just because there's so much to go over. And to be perfectly honest, I'm trying to think as to what I left out because I really want to make sure I tell you everything. But unfortunately, it's that sort of thing where even if I felt I told you everything, later on I'm going to think, oh, I forgot to say this. Oh well, that's another part of life. You're not gonna remember to do everything. It's like going shopping for groceries for the week. You're going to think you got everything when really it turns out you forgot something. But I guess that's a bittersweet taste of life. And you're able to get through it. Because you're worth it. We're all worth it. And life is worth living for. Take care.